Coming to you straight from the Rio Grande and beyond. Broadcasting to the four corners of the globe. So grab your seat, your coffee, or your sundowner.
Okay, everybody, here we go.
On point, as always. This is Gloves Off. Gloves Off.
Wherever you call home, we are there. In favorite places. Large spaces. For many homes, we have coverage that fits the way you live. And with our home systems protection, you can cover major home appliances and more. We cover more type of homes than ever. Get the coverage you and your family deserves. For a free no obligation quote, visit us online or simply give us a call.
We're back at you in Gloves Off, and today I have a great guest. We have Laredo Police Department Chief Mike Rodriguez. How are we doing, Chief? You doing good?
Paul, we're doing great. How are you this morning?
Good. Just here, hanging in there, trying to get over a sore throat the whole week. Lost my voice, and trying to get back in there and
Oh man, well you sound great, so I think you're better now, right?
a little bit better. Had to go get some uh, antibiotics that would drop a rhino, and that was like we had to do it.
Oh man, yeah, that and it's crazy how we talk about rhino now and before COVID, we will never be so intense about viruses out there. You just go to the doctor and tells you, you have a virus going on, just let it go, and you'll be fine. Now it's like, okay, what do I have, right? And it's like, oh, you have rhino, we have this. So now we know all these viruses just because we got more educated during COVID, right? It's like I want to know exactly what I have, but. Yeah, it's crazy because my son, we one time we took him to the ER and he had both, right? Rhino and there was a rhino and there was another virus that was called out for him and he had both viruses and we were like, how can you get both viruses, right? And he was pretty bad. He had a fever, he had all that, and so it was concerning for us because we just didn't want it to get out of hand. But man, after COVID, he was like, oh, it's just a virus. That's fine. We can handle that, and so no worries on that. But yeah, I mean, it's just crazy how we just an event can change the whole dynamic of how we live life, right?
And there's a lot of things that occurred during that terrible year of 2020 that like we're talking now in Zoom. That's something that now we can talk across. It just kind of the the systems of communication just were overdeveloped, and it's in a positive. So now we can, who 20 years ago, this what we're doing right now, nobody thought could be done. Yeah, there was imaginable things, but you know,
Oh
we're the
yeah.
last we're the last generation that we were in the dial, the circular dial
Yeah.
phones. Some of the
Yeah.
kids now don't even know that that existed.
Those long cords, right? That you would walk around the house and but you know what? In a way I miss it, Paul. I miss those days where, it was just a lot of clarity, right? We knew exactly where we're going and a lot of the situation that we're in now, right? Nowadays, because of technology, it's great. I love technology. I think technology is something that has helped the police department in many ways
Absolutely.
to a certain extent, right? You talk about the things that are out there on certain platforms, right? Where we talk a lot about our youth, right, and how they get so engaged in their phones and social media platforms that sometimes it becomes a threat, right, in many ways because they get all these ideas and all these things in their head that they think that it's true, right? And you have to, be a parent and let them know, like, hey, this is not true, right? Let me give you the rundown as to how this works, because you have TikTok influencers and Instagram influencers that are telling them how to become millionaires, and they want to go do it at 14 years old. You can't do that. There's certain things. Yes, you can, but there's certain steps that you have to know how to get there, right? And so aside from that is the violence, right? The violence that exists on social media, and also the bullying that exists on social media. And I think, when we talk about, the threats in our society, right? We talk a lot about what's in front of us, right? We talk a lot about cartels. We talk a lot about, the bad element that exists, gang members and stuff like that. Well, a bigger threat is social media, right? And that's the online predators, and not only on the sexual predators and those predators that are going after children, but also those predators that are just trying to put things in the youth that is causing all this problem, all this anxiety, all this depression, and those are threats that we need to start looking more in depth, because at the end of the day, we tend to think a lot about our kids, and we tend to think that we know that they're okay and that we know that they know what they're doing, but in reality, they're not. They're not.
You're
That's why
correct.
we need to talk to them.
The first time I heard the word cyberbullying was about 19 years ago. And I don't know if you remember that we had that rape spree, that rapist for a
Yeah.
while. Remember?
Mhm.
And had 20 something girls at that time frame. And we brought down a good friend of mine. His name's Curtis Silva, who was the one that started the Guardian Angels in New York.
Okay.
He came down and we did a couple of walkthroughs and trying to get the apartment complexes that were getting hit, just talking to the people and trying to tell them what to look out for and be more vigilant, right? And we were sitting down talking. He goes, Paul, we have a new threat. I mean, you deal a lot with bullying and telling kids on the physical nature. We have cyberbullying. And I go, what's that? They go, that's something that's going to hit us so fast, and people do not know what to do with it. And that
Mhm.
was, 18, 19 years ago, more or less. And sure enough, here it is in our in everyday life. And people do not understand. It's very simple to say something to a keyboard without looking at the other person, and they go off and blatantly start insulting them and cursing them out, insulting whatever form of words they want to use, or that type of communication. But when you see those people in real life, they're not doing it. Because why? Because front face to face, people change,
Mhm.
and it's made that communication barrier oblivious, so they can do whatever they want. They think, I can do whatever they want. They're not looking at me, so I can tell them whatever. And I think that's a main problem because they're not looking at each other. But and once you start getting the guts to do it, you're going to do it more and more and more, and it just becomes a habit. And I think we have to teach our kids, teach our youth some type of communication skills in school. Those are the stuff that we should be teaching them because we're sending them off to the real world. You're a father, you're a great father. What I've seen with your son, the same way as I am here with my kids, is we give them so much love and attention that we're actually preparing the people that we love the most to go out to live on their own.
Mhm. Yep.
And so that's what we're preparing them for. You're preparing them to be good citizens in society, prosperous citizens in society in a positive note. And how can we do that? We need to also have communication skills taught not only at home, but also in the schools. And I
Mhm.
think that's what we're missing out, in the schools. A long time ago when I moved back, um, when I lived in Dallas, through Savat, I was teaching a lot of kids from different areas, a lot of youth from different areas. And along the youth in this type of boxing mentality, you get the good and you get the bad. You get the tough guys and you get the guys that want to be tough, and then you get the little gangbangers. Little did I know that I had leaders of gangs in my school.
Oh,
Okay.
wow. Mhm.
And Chief Hawkins from Dallas said, Paul, you have guys there that are from different gangs. So we got them all together and they did a truce. So this is back in 94, 93, 94. They did a truce. Why? Because we started teaching this thing. So they started communicating with each other and respecting each other within the bounds. And then something happened and everything fell apart. But I saw a difference because in Dallas you saw gangs.
Mm-hmm.
Here, for the longest time, we had neighborhoods, barrios.
Yeah.
Barrios are still around, but the gangs now have started to come up. And when I first moved down, and I spoke with Sheriff back then. It was Juan Garza, and there were several people, and I said, we have a problem. We have two right now. One, we better start looking out how we're gonna start controlling bullying. And everybody laughed, bullying. No, not dale unos cocotes, and they go forward. That was their main thing. And I said, that's gonna lead us into gangs because they're gonna have to find a way to protect each other. And that's what's gonna happen. They told me it's never gonna happen. It's happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
So things like that is I've seen the mentality, and I'm going to go back to this, and I'm going to say this, and I'll say it, not because we're talking, not because you're in front of me, but I've told this to others. I've known personally, I've known the other chiefs. We've had one good one that I would say was Ray Gardner, apart from the others that came in. One didn't care whether what happened to Laredo or not. He was from out of town, and the other two ended up going the wrong side. And so when you look at that, the department had a bad smudge on it. And now, we've talked and I've seen what you're trying to do. And I said, this is a person that surrounded himself with good officers to lead and to try to change something that let's see if it's changeable. And I think it can be changed.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to do something for the positive, not for the community, positive for the department, which in turn develops the community, protects the community.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is honorable. So you have my backing, you got my support. Thank you so much for doing that because a lot of people do not know what you're trying to do. And to me, it's very commendable what you're trying to accomplish. And I
Thank
think
you.
everybody needs to understand that because we have bad apples, we have good apples, and we have a lot of them that are just lost, that you're
Yeah.
just a, and we have to bring that up. And what you've been talking about is good. So I would like for you to express what you're trying to do.
Well, one of the things that we are very aggressive in, right, is to change culture. Um, Culture is everything, right? And for the police department, we've had this culture for many years. I joined Laredo PD in 1999. Before that, I became a peace officer in 1997. I was a constable back then, and then I joined the Texas A&M International University Police Department. That's where I got my degree while I was there. And when I joined PD, I've always wanted to be a cop. That was my thing, right? I wanted to be a street cop. And so joining the police department in 1999, it wasn't it was a department that was evolving, but it was evolving at a very slow pace, right? And what I mean by that is, we didn't have, technology back then that would help us be more efficient. We didn't have checks and balances the way we have now, right? There was no GPS, there was no body cams. So there's a lot of things that change from when I joined to where we're at now. And the only thing that didn't change a lot was the whole culture, right? And the culture, what I mean by that is, you become a police officer and you tend to think that this is the only family that you have to surround yourself with, right? And one of the things that we keep on pushing in our department is that we need to disconnect because when you come to this department and you're dealing the majority of the time you're dealing with great people, you're just providing that service. But the other part of the job is to dealing with the scum of the earth, right? And when you
Absolutely.
constantly come to work and you're dealing with the scum of the earth, most of the times, you tend to become that person that really is not that you stop caring, but you stop being that I want to provide service to my community. It's more like it's us against them, right? And we can't do that because we disconnect completely from the community. So we're pushing the note that when you're off, you have to be off. You can't be thinking police codes. You can't be thinking what's happening, with my platoon, because you're off, right? You have to disconnect. You have to insert yourself back to the community, back to your family, and be that normal human being, right? Stop being a cop. We're 24/7, we're peace officers, we're going to act if something happens. Yes, that kicks in automatically. But what I'm saying is you go back to your family, you go back to your loved ones, you go back to your friends that are not cops, and you connect back to that community. That's the one thing that we're trying to change. The other thing that we're trying to change is that we have to be accountable for everything that we do. We cannot just become a cop for 2 years and stop caring. We have to continue moving forward. And what I mean by that is we have to continue performing as we're moving along in our careers. The one thing that we've seen is, and this is not just happening last year or 2 years ago, this is for many years, Paul, that you become a cop and you're a cop, a very good cop for 2, maybe 3 years, right? You're that officer that goes out there, you're arresting people, you're making sure that you're making those reports, you're caring. At 3 years, we start seeing a decline in that process, right? And what happens there is because everything becomes routine. Everything becomes routine in policing. I go out there, I get my car, I get the briefing from the sergeant. I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna do reports. I'm gonna go get out there and wait for the call that I need to get to go get the bad guy. And that routine makes it at one point in that career, and those 3 years, at one point you start thinking, it's the same thing over and over again, right? I'm dealing with these people over and over again. And the majority of the time is repeat offenders. The majority of the time is the same household that you're responding in your same beat for that domestic violence, for that mental health, that call that you need to address with a particular person, for that person that overdosed. It's the same houses. Cops know about them, right? So what we're trying to change is to be a little bit more expand on our operations, right? One, we need to start tracking our officers, right? How are they doing? We need to get them healthy, first and foremost, not only physically, but mentally. How are they doing? How are they reacting when they're either responding to a call or when they're engaged at a call? Are they still caring about the community? Are they still caring about themselves? Are they still caring about their families? All those things you have to look at. And so you have to you have to create this overwatch of your officers, right? And see where they're at. Because that it, when you do that, it will give you symptoms of something that's wrong, right? And that's where we need to engage them. And that's what we're trying to do. And what we're trying to say is because the officers, they think about this. Hey, why do I need internal affairs overlooking at me? Why do I need to get disciplined for every action that I do? Well, we always say you're gonna get disciplined for an action that was wrong, plain and simple. Let's not play victim, right? But when we're overlooking and we're bringing you in and we're telling you, hey man, you need to turn on your camera. Don't forget to turn on your camera. Hey man, this call, you could have handled it this way, right? Some of them get upset and it's like, hey, I'm the one doing the calls. You're not in patrol. You're just in administration. Well, we're trying to protect you, right? From you getting away and getting away from the mentality of providing service, from the mentality of community first, from the mentality that if we don't address it now, you're gonna go down that rabbit hole and you're not gonna be able to get out of it, right? And so one of the things that we're trying to do is to do that, but also making sure that we give something back to them, right? We're talking about this gym, right? That everybody was like, oh my God, you're paying so much for the gym. What are you doing, Chief? Right? It's like they can go on to the gym themselves. Well, it's not about getting there, working out, and looking pretty. It's not about building muscles. This gym that we're doing, this program that we're implementing is not about that. The program that we're implementing is an operational program, right? And what I mean by that is an after shift program. You put in your 9 hours. The last hour, what we want to do is you turn in all your reports. Your sergeant is going to make sure your reports are turned in. Everything went well. He's going to let you know, hey, we need to go work out. The workout research tells us that it's going to get you away from stress. It's going to make sure that you are, low on your cholesterol, low on your high blood pressure. All those great things that comes with exercise is there. But the one thing that we want to do with that is that when we send that officer home, Paul, that we're sending him decompressed, that we're not sending them with this huge adrenaline rush that they just had 30 minutes ago and this huge stress factor that they just dealt with a person for 4 hours at the hospital that is continues to tell them, hey, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna kill you, a mental person, right? For 4 hours, sometimes they stay at the hospital dealing with that. Or that they go to a call and they see a 2-year-old that has been sexually assaulted by an uncle, right? So we want them to decompress before we send them home, because if we don't, we send them with all those things and that's what we're sending home. I think that's very responsible as a department to do that, as a city to do that.
And you're that right there, what you just said is a keynote for what you're trying to do. Because here in Laredo, there's a lot of domestic violence, and a lot of domestic violence does come from LEOs. And people say, no, it doesn't. Yes, it does, because of that pressure. You see it with the border patrol. You see it all over and over. And it's something that didn't happen last year. Been going on forever. And he went home, got a couple of beer, got mad, and boom, something happened. Se acabó el cuento. And that that bell rang, and you can't put it back. It already happened.
Yeah.
So that decompression, that program that you're trying to do is actually very great, because not only is going to get them fit, it's going to remove that from them. And you can even see them there, and you can monitor them, because if they're working out and the person's angry, you're going to see them work out angry. And you can even tell them, hey, you know what? Let's go over here 30 minutes. There's a counselor here. What's going on? And you can even help them out that much more. And that, to me, I think that's A plus. That, to me, was what changed that a view. Because I grew up here in Laredo, and we've had a lot of great officers. Believe me, we've had great officers, family members, and others that are in there. But then llegan hombres, and then they'll tell you the same ones that come of age that are bad apples. It's that guy's been that way all the time. Nobody siempre está así, no, can't control them, and nobody wants to do anything about it. And you hear that. So when you surround yourself with good people, what you have done, what I've seen in person, and you're doing with that is, with that old saying, tell me who you hang around with, and I'll tell you who you are. You're hanging around with good people to develop better. And that's what this is all about. So when you start producing and giving credit to the good officers, and the rest that have been complying, they're going to see that they're going to produce better. And the bad ones, well, the bad ones we have to get rid of. But but what happens with that is we lose what could have been a good officer gone bad, because of all the pressure that he had. Goes home, has a cold one, gets in an argument, and bingo, now he's in a domestic violence situation. Now you just turned him bad. And then you could have still protected him and kept him on this side of the line.
Well, and let's not forget the most important thing, Paul, right? The community, right? So when these officers are going out to the community with this stress level and this mentality, right, that is us against them, that's what makes a bad police officer, right? Because we already engage in a situation at a level that we're not supposed to be at. Our officers are supposed to be fair and square at the very middle. There's no left, right. It's right in the middle. It's like, I'm gonna serve, and I'm gonna be able to make the decision right in the middle, right? And so when we're sending them like this, again, irresponsible of us sending them out there to the community to protect and serve, we're not doing our jobs. We have to send them right in the middle, right? Where they can make that decision a lot better because that stress component is low and they're healthy. When you send an overweight officer, an obese officer, a person that's going through some sort of health problems, that's already stress level in its own. And then you send them out to the community to fix problems in the community. That's crazy. That's crazy. So we have to do better. We have to make sure that we protect our officers. And you know what? I've always say, and I've always told this to many people, right? I was a cop. I was a patrolman for 3.5 years, right? And then I became a CSI, right? And a CSI was still a patrolman because back then there was no CSI squad. It was they would give you a call sign, they would send you to a beat, and then the sergeant was his call sign was 301, and the CSI, which is the two stripes, kind of like a corporal, was called 302, and that's what I was. I was B3 and I was number two, right? And so you would still make phone calls, you would still process scene, you would do all that. And when I look at all that has changed, right, and for the better, right, you know, we still have old timers here that will tell you why are they complaining, right? You know, they look at us when we were in patrol, you know, we didn't care. It's a new generation, Paul, where we have to pivot. And that's another struggle, right? When we have to tell our old guard, hey man, we have to pivot. You cannot continue with this mentality that because we used to do it, they can do it. We have to pivot. And so this new generation is very different. And I always say, right, that they want to be included. They want to know what's coming. You cannot just show up one day and say, we're doing this because it's the end of the world. You have to make sure that you give them that visibility and clarity for them so that they know what's coming. And so sometimes that's something that we do, right? We go and we tell them, hey man, make sure this is coming, right? We're changing. And you know, the very first time that I went to briefings, I said, hey, we're gonna change it to 3 sectors, man. Just prepare, right? What do you mean 3 sectors? We only have two. We're going to 3 sectors. We're going to south, central, and north. Every sector has different problems, and we have to shift. The other reason we're changing sectors is because we're preparing ourselves to go into a digital platform. What do I mean by that? We're going to go into online reporting, and to get a better perspective as to what's happening in specific areas of the city, we have to divide the city in certain sectors. The other thing is we need to make sure that we have our area responsibility a little bit smaller than what we used to have, because we used to have east and west. And so east and west had a bunch of districts, and there were 2 captains assigned to each sector, 1 and 1. And we said no more. We're going to do 3. Area responsibility is going to be smaller, but it's going to be more in-depth level of supervision, because now if something happens in their area of responsibility for a captain, he's going to come back and he's going to let us know, hey, I have this problem. We're going to attack it this way. I'm going to use these resources. We're going to use these assets. Let's get it done. Boom, let's get it done, right? But when you have 2 big sectors, how can I tell a captain or ask a captain, hey, by the way, what happened over there in Feather Magnable the other day? Oh, hold on, Chief, let me check. And also, by the way, what happened in Slaughter Park? Oh, hold on, let me check. And by the way, what happened over there in Santa Fe subdivision? There was a parks situation over there. You had 3 parks captain that really we did not get what's going on. Find out what's going on. So you have a captain of all this area responsible for that area. How are we ever going to get things done for him to be responsible for all that area when it wasn't necessary? So we cut it in 3, right? And now we're a lot better. We spread the wealth, right? We said, hey, now you're responsible for the north, you're responsible for central, and you're responsible for south. Now what do we have? The south sector captain, shots fired. That's his biggest threat. Our central sector captain, which is our CENTCOM, That captain, his biggest priority is going to be downtown homelessness, I-35 homelessness problems, and then also as well our Central Laredo stuff, which is peaking right now on shots fired. That area. North, you got Port, you got the North Central Park, you got speed racers, different problems, different areas of the city. So we've been doing much better. Double digit decrease in crime, Paul. Tell me one city that has that.
Well, congratulations. Well, you have to. People say Laredo. Laredo's growing leaps and bounds. I mean, there's neighborhoods upon neighborhoods now, and you're like, where'd this neighborhood just pop out of? Where are all these people coming from? And people say, do we actually have the right census? I mean, if you look at it, we're supposed to have 106, 260 something. I think it's a little bit more than that. I think it's in the 300s. And people just a lot of people aren't being they're not being counted on the census. And when you see this stuff, I mean, it's big. And
It's
people say,
big.
no, it's not big. No, it's big. You get lost here in Laredo.
You know
And
what, Paul? And you know what? We're not even touching the whole expansion of warehouses. It's crazy. The
yes,
amount of warehouses and port initiatives that are happening in the city, crazy. Now we're responsible all the way to 255 on Mines Road, and nobody sees that, right? So that's what we're preparing, I think at this point we've been doing great. Our officers are doing outstanding, and I can tell you, I'm gonna be very upfront with this. Honestly, the majority of our officers are very young. And I love the fact that they're also very, they have that work ethic to be go-getters. And even though you say they're young and they're going to be out there and no, you can see it in every industry where this new generation is a little bit different. But for policing, it's harder. But our officers here, man, I love them, man. They're just doing tremendous work day in and day out. And I love the fact that they have a lot of resiliency, right?
Chief, I get from seeing interactions with the police 2, 3, 4 years ago to now, officers on the street. Now they're very cordial. Before they were very abrasive, very. If you didn't know them, they rubbed off the wrong way. Could have taken, depending on how one was, it could have gone all different ways. And now they're very cordial, very straightforward. In fact, I commended several of them that were there because we had an incident, and they're very very commendable officers. It's a difference. I don't know if it's the academy or if it's the community that you're building that's inside that's changing things. I want to think it's that, and I commend you with that because you have the same academy supervises everybody. Not knocking them down, but they in other words they feed the sheriffs, they feed the constables, they feed everybody else. And here it's different. You start seeing a little bit more of a yes sir, no sir, and I'm not trying to say if they have to talk to you that way, but they're very cordial, and that's very nice to see.
And
And
again, Paul, it's about service, right? And these officers, they know it's about that, right? It's about serving the community, right? The responding to threat, that's automatic, right? These guys are going to engage. They're trained for that. But the harder part that nobody was watching, right, was that part where you're servicing the community. You gotta make sure that you instill that on them that at the end of the day, guys, we're servicing our community and our community is us. Without the community, be very hard to police. Very hard.
because you need the community to back you up,
Yes.
and
And
that
to help you, because
that
majority of the cases that we broke in, Paul, is because of our community, right? Regardless of the fact that sometimes we tend to make a joke, right? It's like, don't do a crime in Laredo, man, because it's the most chismoso of all cities, right? And you're gonna get that, hey, I know who did it, right? So, but our community has always been great. Every time we post something on Facebook, we get feedback right away, and we say, hey, this is the guy, I know this guy. They give us the information, we go get them. But I think, the one thing that has shifted in our police department, and again, that I'm very proud of our officers, right? Our new officers that are coming on board, and that they understand that we're providing a service to our community, period. And yes, in that service comes protecting our community.
And that's true what you said, and especially on the protecting side. We're talking about the issues with the carteles, with everything influences, with the dangers that we have across. You're the first one that's been vociferous about we need to protect Laredo,
Mm-hmm.
and explain to us about the drones that you want to put up there because we can take, and because right now, as we've seen how cartels are using drones back and forth, and now you want to combat that in that sense as well, which is something that we need to, especially
Yeah.
here in proximity.
And you're right, Paul. The whole thing with drones, right? And again, technology, right? Everybody, it's a force multiplier for everybody, even cartels, right? And so we've had situations where we've seen them utilizing drones to counter surveil police activity, right? And so we're getting ahead of the game. We're talking to our federal partners, to our state partners, and making sure that we're all on the same page when it comes to drone activity, right? And at the same time, to be able to counter those drones is very dangerous. We've seen videos, and I'm pretty sure you've seen them too, where they use IEDs, right, against certain individuals and certain counter cartels. And so we have to make sure that we prepare for that because it doesn't have to necessarily be the cartels using that as a weapon. And my thing has always been, I've always said it, right? We have to prepare for the impossible to become the possible, right? And when we're talking about even a small event, somebody wants to do some damage, we talk about the situations, right? That what if this happens? And we have to be ready for it. So, you know, being the police chief of this community, it always worries me when we're talking about drones, when we're talking about new technology that's out there, because even technology where they're opening up your computer and looking at you through the camera that exists in your computer, or turning on your phone to listen to your conversation. Those are things, Paul, that you people have to be aware of, right? And so those situations are the things that sometimes I think about, how can we better protect our community. So when people see our budget and they see, hey man, why is the chief getting so much money? Well, a part of it is grants, right? And I always say, right, like you got about $18 million there that is all grants, and we thank our state partners and our federal partners. And Governor Abbott has been tremendous, and Senator Saffarini has always been a push for this, and Richard Raymond. They're all, they're all supporting in our police department here. But where I'm going with this is that this technology to counter is very costly, Paul. And so
Sure.
for us, we're thinking here is like, okay, where are we going to get? Eventually, we're going to have to buy all this, and we're going to have to pay for it to keep on protecting our community. And so we look at all this from a different angle. And I know that you've seen the videos, and I know you've seen, the conversations with you in the past has been towards drones. Drones is the next biggest threat, and it's already here. It's
It's
already
already here. People do not understand drones. What the Ukrainians did, and I'm gonna quote Eric Prince, who is the founder of Blackwater. He made a speech. I think I sent you the video where he says what the Ukrainians did against the Russians using drones and manipulating them to drop LEDs and bombs and what have you, or just grenades over to shoot them over, was exactly the same thing that Genghis Khan did, placing stirrups on saddles. It changed warfare. And there's cartels and there's enough viable resources, and reporters that cartels are being sent to the Ukraine to learn how to defensively and offensively use drones. So this is coming. This is
Mhm.
something that it's here, and nothing against our Mexican counterparts. Mexican people are one of the most beautiful people there is in the world. But the bad element that's there, it's there, and it's here, And a lot of people do not understand that cartels are actually hiring or bringing in people that are American citizens to work for them as well. So it's a problem that we have.
Oh yes, and we keep on talking about it, right? And one of our briefs, which is those briefs happen on a Wednesday here in PD, and we always talk about, okay, what do we see? Where are the gaps? And I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna be very honest with you, Paul. We have a lot of gaps. We have a lot of gaps, and so we need to make sure that we start closing those gaps. And
Absolutely.
aside from everything that happens in the city, this is what your police department does, right? It's just kind of figuring out how we're going to be countering all these threats, right? From cartel to your local gangs, which is continue being Mexican mafia, the sindicatos and the pistoleros, even to your hybrid gangs, where you have families in Laredo that still exist that are still on a rumble. Aside from all that, you got your domestic violence, your mental health, and then here comes the homelessness, right? And so all these situations, and then here comes the big targets, right? Which is your biggest threat. Who are they? Where are they from? And that's what we do on Wednesdays here, right? And believe it or not, that's a conversation that sometimes takes 4 hours.
Yeah,
And
I can
so
imagine.
here is a police department that has evolved completely and has shifted not only as to how we're going to be responding to those calls and how we're going to be making our service better, but also is how we're going to be preventing things from happening. So it's been a lot of work, but we're getting there. And like I told from the very get-go, right? And I'll say it here, right? That when I leave, I just want to make sure that when I leave, that the people trust the police department more than they trust the chief, because chiefs
And
come and go, Paul. Chiefs come and go. So I want to make sure we leave a department that the community trusts more than the person sitting here.
and that's very important that you say, because now across America, people do not trust the police, do not trust the government, do not trust their doctors anymore, do not trust their educators. Trust has been gone. So
Mhm.
we need to bring back that trust. And without bringing back that trust, we can't grow. We're going to be stuck into that. Nah, I don't trust it. I'm not going to do anything about it. And we need to move in a forward momentum to bring back trust. And that trust comes from leaders, just like yourself. The leader of the fire chief has to do the same thing, and all the way up down in the city council, they're trying to do the same thing. I think I think they realized that they needed to do that.
Mhm.
I think it's something that I think you're seeing a shift, and hopefully that shift is for the better. And
And I think you hit the nail on the head here, Paul. I think everybody, mayor, council, all directors from the city they're all on the same page, right? At this point, where we need to provide clarity to our community, whether
absolutely,
it's whether it's good news or bad news, we have to get in front of it and we have to accept what it is, right? And when you give that clarity, that's what people want, right? I think we're shifting a little bit here, Paul, where, even this conversation, right? I think people are shifting more to this type of conversation versus the chaos, right? I think people are going to stop glorifying chaos just because a lot of that is made up, where there's doesn't exist, right? It's just made up chaos so that people can be attracted to it. I think people are moving away from that because people do want some sort of visibility as to where we're at and give me facts, right? That's one thing that I always tell our PIOs, right? Our public information officers is like, provide facts, make sure that you're transparent, and if I need to get up there to clarify something, I'll do it, right? But we have to be that person to say, if something did bad happen and we did wrong, we have to accept it to fix it. Because if we don't do that, people are not going to trust us. So we have to
absolutely.
do that. No matter how bad it is, we're going to have to get in front of it and accept it. So I think at this point, we are there, and not 100%, but we're moving in the right direction.
That's what it's all. That's what it's about. Is understanding. that there was a problem, realizing the problem, and fixing the problem. And it's going to take time, and it's going to take time. But how do you take time? With smiles and handshakes, and keep on moving forward. And
Yep.
that's how you bring back that trust. And I
Absolutely.
think that's what's happening now. I see it. I've seen it for a while, and we've talked and continued. And I said to myself, you know what? When I saw who you grabbed around, and I said, he's doing something for the better. Because
Yeah.
we still have a lot of we have a lot of good badges out there, and we
Mhm.
have to protect those good badges at all costs. Period. The bad ones, we have to remove them and not play this musical chairs game. You resign and then you go over there to the other department over there, and then
Mhm.
they call something over there. And resign, go to that other one. They're playing musical chairs, and you see them. They're the same ones playing musical chairs, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, if you guys would have taken the his license 4 years ago, he wouldn't have done
Yeah.
that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And I'll leave you with this, Paul. I mean, where are we heading? You saw we deployed drones. We're gonna have 6 pods across the city. They're gonna be first responders. A lot of the stuff that that drone is gonna be doing, those pilots are gonna be doing is making sure that they provide visibility to the responding officers. We don't want anybody to be waiting for them and shooting at them. So that's first and foremost. The drone has the capability of dropping Narcan to a person that's overdosing. So if somebody calls and they say, hey, my son is overdosing, my father's overdosing, they immediately deploy that drone. The communications technician is gonna let them know, like, hey, there's a drone en route, they're gonna drop Narcan, use it because we're gonna get there in about 3-4 minutes. So use it. The drone is gonna get there between 40-45 seconds. So that's the beauty of this technology. And it's even going to get better because now we're going to be able to have the capability of attaching to a pursuit where a vehicle doesn't want to stop. That way we can disengage and stop putting the community in danger with these high speed pursuits, which is very dangerous throughout our city. That happens quite often, right? So we want to get away from that. PD has a zero pursuit policy unless it's a felony, or the people or the person that's in engage has a threat to the community, right? So that's already here. It's going to be 6 spots across the city, and we're going to be deploying them where we're within a mile range from every, I mean, 45 second range from every direction in that area that we're geofencing. That's on drones. The other thing that's coming that's going to be really neat, it's going to be online reporting, right? So we're still waiting there. We still have people waiting for police for like 3 hours on a theft report, right? Theft report that we have no suspects. Yeah, there's a video, but we're still not a priority one for PD, right? So what we're doing is we're sending you a link, and then you can go online on your phone and you can even attach that video, send it, we'll assign it to a detective, and it's already rolling, right? We don't have to wait 3 hours, sometimes 3.5 hours for a police officer. The other thing also that we're moving along, and this is also going to help our police officers because our officers, they're going from call to call to call to call, and the majority is report writing. So this is also going to get away, give them a little break to do other things that are priority for our officers. The other thing that's coming now is I call it, we're gonna be the Domino's pizza of policing, right? Now when you create a case, automatically you're gonna get a text as to your case has been filed. And then from there, you're gonna get a text that it's been approved by our watch commander, and then you're gonna get another text as to when he's gonna got assigned to a detective and the detective that was assigned to the case. So now you have that kind of like Domino's Pizza, like you put your order, now it's baking, it's delivering, right? And so, and we talked about this, Paul, because you've called and say, hey, who's the detective assigned to this case, right? And we're like, let me scramble, let me go and check out, and then I'll send you the detective name. Now we don't need to do that. Now you'll be able to see who's the detective. You'll be able to text with that detective right away and making sure that we give you that service that you want. The other great thing that we're pushing out, just to announce it here, every time that we respond to a call, you're going to be receiving a survey. And that's what's going to give us back the feedback as to how our officers did and what we can change for the better. So every time we go out there, we get into a case and an incident, you're gonna be sent a survey, and we ask the community to give us feedback, right, as to how we're doing, because we want to fix our gaps. And I think this is a right way to do it. So that's coming. It's a lot of good things that are coming for Laredo from the police department. And, we're eventually going to be a police department that's going to be the most innovative police department in Texas.
Oh, awesome. That's the thing. Let's start putting Laredo back on number one, and start making it that route, and everything else comes within time. Everything else comes with time, and it has to have an initiative, and that initiative has to be positive.
Absolutely.
Sometimes things start on a negative. How do we go? But when it's starting on a positive note, I think that's what it's all about. And I think people need to understand that. And thank you for what you're doing. And
Thank you, Paul.
you're a busy man, and we'll leave you with that. I want to thank you for coming on and explaining to not only to me, to the audience and to Laredoans what are your plans, because a lot of people haven't figured it out yet, but I think this is going to get to a lot of ears out there and move it forward in that direction, because number one, nobody wants any harm to any police officer. Nobody wants any harm to anybody. And if we can make things a lot safer, then it's a better living for everybody.
Absolutely, Paul. And yeah, I mean, let's continue the conversation as we keep on moving along. I'll be back here, making sure that I'll provide you visibility and making sure that your audience is kept updated with what we're doing here.
Absolutely. So we'll leave you with this. Thank you once more. Continue doing the positive work. And folks, we'll leave you with this. You all stay safe, be safe, and God bless you. Till next time.
Be safe, guys.
Have you ever wondered about what happens in a martial arts studio? Well, you start right away by setting goals, building determination, gaining focus, building skills, all while becoming more fit, gaining confidence, and learning self-defense. Buitron Academy is a school where attitude meets aptitude. So give us a call at 956-401-4868.